Alrighty, hello. So welcome everybody. You know me as RozyGlow, and we have the lovely Shivani here, who I haven't spoken to for so long. It's been ages, and when I was looking back on my notes, it's 18 months since we had our final session. So it's good to get a little check-in, and we were basically working together really over about a 6-month period when you look at how our sessions were sort of split up. But what we did was we went through the Fearless content, the Fearless, Empowered and Free to Be Me content in a one-to-one capacity. So yeah, there's so much excitement here between us both because we haven't really connected. So I'm just like, let's get going. And what I'd love to start with is well, we could say, where are you now? But I think it's really helpful to look at where you were when you first actually decided to work with me. So kind of what brought you to want to have some work with RozyGlow and with my coaching?
Well, firstly, for your viewers, it has taken a long time for us to reconnect just because of so many things that have been going on, good things. And actually, it's a really lovely thing to do and think about where I have come from on the journey, because sometimes we do all this work and we don't really look back enough and say, hey, how much have I transformed and what have I learned? So actually, this is a real honor to do this now, actually. And so I came to meet you, Rozy, interestingly at Buddhafield, which is a festival, and I just knew straight away that there was some work we needed to do, but at the time I didn't know what. I was with my sister and my niece at the time, and I know that some of the things that you were teaching us there was just something that I viscerally felt was something ancestral and wise that I knew I needed to reconnect with, not necessarily from this lifetime, but probably from previous. I was in my current job now with J&J as a learning and development manager. I had recently split with someone who I cared deeply for, and actually had some very tough times fighting for, because my family didn't accept this person for their background, their race. So it was a really difficult breakup because we had gone through so much to be together. And despite all my work, I'm a qualified coach, despite my own work that always worked before wasn't working, despite my positivity, despite my faith, despite the support and love I had around me from wonderful friends and family, there was just something in me that needed to be honored, surrendered, and guided through this process of healing, and also a different way of being with myself and in relationship. And I knew that it was time for me to invest in working with you. And I, as I mentioned, I'm a qualified coach, so I've had some awesome coaching my career. I think I've delivered some awesome coaching over the kind of 10 odd years I've been a certified coach, professionally and personally, but this was different. I knew, my body knew, my mind knew, my heart, my soul knew that I needed to do something more than just talking it through or making sense of it or analyzing it or just being positive or looking at different perspectives. I knew there was a deeper healing to be done, and I knew there was a different way for me to extend my range as a person, as a woman, as a human being. So when I looked at some of your work and just in conversation with you, I was really struck by how you were able to integrate both spiritual and science, neuroscience, how you were able to integrate the kind of third dimension, the physical form, the job, what we aspire to be in this world right now, and also higher planes. So ancestral, divine connection. And I knew I couldn't have worked with anybody other than you who had the integrity to do this work in a very grounded way. And I was in a lot of pain. It took me a year. No, it took me more than that. It took me over a year, really, to really accept that I needed some support with this. And I needed some rigorous, loving, compassionate support that was kind of even beyond the human realm. Is the truth. I knew that. And when we connected and you explained how you worked, I just knew this was right, and I couldn't have even imagined what was going to come next.
Oh, bless you. Well, I think this is the thing, is that you are a stunning, beautiful, empowered woman anyway. So to get you to come on and do something called Fearless, Empowered and Free to Be Me was kind of like, it was tricky. And I remember you weren't really attracted so much to that side of it. It was much more the emotional mental detox side that really drew you in. And I was like, look, I hear you, but you really want this framework around the emotional mental detox, because if we don't also use the physical tools to help move what we're clearing
Right.
in the energy field out of the body, it's going to dramatize in ways you don't want to. And I was kind of really leading you that way. And I think in the end we really got there. And it's very much, I was honored. I'm like, wow, here we have a coach wanting me to coach her. Let's see how this goes. And our coaching, it's such different experience. And I think this is the thing about sort of more traditional coaching, which I would say is more cerebral. And even in the world of like EFT and NLP, it's neuroscience, and you can kind of say, oh yeah, we get how it works, but there's something beyond that. There is the soul language, there is the soul communication. And to me, it felt very much like you were really seeking to bridge that, to bridge your soul and your human self, and in terms of how sort of recently, prior to us working, that relationship break had occurred, how much time had kind of gone on between when you had split up and when you kind of come to work with me?
I think it was a year and a half.
So it was getting 18 months. So 18 months
to 2 years. Yeah, it felt like a long time, and the pain almost got worse. The more I accepted it, the more I went with it, the more I let it go. And without giving all the detail, but it wasn't like a bad breakup, and it wasn't someone I just really, really loved. We were literally, I'd never met anybody who understood, saw, honored, cherished every part of me. And we had to part because we wanted different things in life when we came to it. And my family finally decided to embrace him. We wanted different things, and we could not. We tried for a few months to find a way of compromise, and we both realized that we would be dishonoring ourselves if we, just for example, he didn't want any more children. He's already got children, and separated from his partner many years ago, and didn't want to remarry. And for me, those were two things that were very important things I wanted to do with him: have children, have a family together, and then extend our family, and also, kind of honor our union through marriage, which is not the only way, and it certainly isn't the most strongest ways for me, but it was an important way in this third dimensional world that people understand a sense of commitment. So we had to part, and I was devastated to a point where I could not shake out of it. And it was really starting to encroach on all aspects of my life, where even the idea of going to work was becoming hard. And I've always been a very resilient, hardworking, passionate. Work was my everything. So it was actually getting to a point where I struggled to see the purpose of so many things I was doing, and I'd be sitting there going, I just don't understand. And that's when I knew, to your point, is this had to be an all-round 360, and not just for the sake of fixing my heart, but for the sake of really leaning into what I was being offered here as a lesson, what I was being offered here to step up to. And I knew I couldn't do this with all the, and still now I am so grateful for my studies and what I do. And I think I'm a very effective coach. I'm an effective coach at that level. But this, what you were doing, what you do, is on so many levels what I needed, and to this day has served me even now, and has meant that I'm so connected to my divine power, my divine connection, the divinity in all of us. And these are things I've kind of been taught as a child from being Hindu and Indian, but this was different. It felt like it had no culture attached to it. And also be very present and very abundant and very successful in the third dimension. So it wasn't like I had to choose to be a hippie and, float around and, but instead, and that was my fear. My fear was, I knew I wanted to work on this, but I didn't want to work with somebody who was so up there in the kind of esoteric, blue sky and what's all up here. And nor did I want to work with someone who was so into the physical realm that I needed the connection between the two. And that's what our work totally did. And I just feel like, you know, the work you do about the Gaia and Source, I always feel like I'm connected both ways now, which has served me in so many ways since we worked together. It's kind of almost have to pinch myself with how magical it all feels still.
Oh, bless you. Well, again, I think this is so helpful for women, especially professional women, anyone that's getting out there. I mean, when I say professional, it's actually anyone. When we're looking to really be in our power as a woman or as a man, there's an integration of our spirit and our human self, our soul and our spirit self, but there's also that integration of the inner masculine and the inner feminine and the inner child, but doing it in an integrated way that isn't wishy-washy. And I feel like we often lose what it means to be empowered, especially as women in the corporate world or in a profession where you've got to be there, you've got to be strong. And some of the things you're describing made me think about how you may well have really looked on the surface still like things were really okay, and you were ticking along and doing your work and operating on autopilot in a way that people wouldn't really know deep down the heartache that you were in at the time. And there was also an element of the fact that I want to go into, that you seemed to keep attracting the same sort of man in your life after this relationship had kind of come to an end. And one of the key things we did together was very much about allowing you to make peace with being strong in your feminine and what that actually means, and how that wasn't about emulating masculine qualities. And again, when I say this, I kind of get because masculine and feminine is just for us to understand active and passive, but to understand there's a passivity in action, and there's also a strength in inaction, or there's action in the passivity. And it's like, how do we find our way to be able to trust our intuition, act on it, be able to understand the difference between intuition and fear, and how when fear comes in, it colors everything, and it's so compelling that we really think it's the truth, but it isn't. And all it does is rob us of our power. And then we think we're showing up in the world the way we're meant to, but we're not feeling authentic. And it's what I call now, it's like the stripping away of the motherboard. We all get sort of plugged in a certain way in our time in the womb and when we're born. And everyone goes through that process of being in the womb and being born and going through from complete dependence to independence as we grow up. But how we're plugged in is different. And there are societal and cultural and religious plugins that are almost like, if you think about WordPress, I love technology. It's like, you've got the plugin for this, you've got the plugin for that. But there's lots of malfunctions within that and lots of limitations and bugs in the system. And, to me, this process is a very elegant way of being able to pull everything out, create a safe structure around so we can pull everything out, and then decide how we want to put everything back in again. Have a process to follow, which we'll call the banks of the river, and a kind of core alignment that whenever we get lost, we come back to, which is the tool. I mean, we'll talk about some of the tools, but all of the I ams, the sphere of compassion, the connecting to source, to Gaia, etc. So you can really pull that energy through you. But it's also about allowing there enough, just with those banks and with that structure, there's enough free flow for your soul energy to come in and to really hear that connection to source through your expression. So tell us a little bit about that whole sort of relationship dynamic, as in what you were pulling in that was, why do I keep attracting this? I don't want this. What's happening there?
Well, it's funny because it all feels like when I think about it, it almost just feels like it was a dance that I'm sometimes finding it hard to distinguish. But the sense for me was that just to be clear, I wasn't attracting bad people into my life. It was more like I was attracting men, and this particular last relationship, I was attracting someone who had high feminine energy, and if anyone's watching, they might have a particular vision of what I mean by that. It wasn't that they were feminine or they were like women or anything like that, and if that was the case for some, that might be absolutely fine. I mean this kind of go with the flow, everything will work as it is, very intuitive and trusting. But I found myself doing all the driving, doing all the ambition, making things happen, planning, like a lot of people do, especially a lot of women have learned to do, kind of really start controlling situations. I wouldn't say I was controlling, but I noticed that I did a lot of the making things move forward in my relationships. And I, at the time, thought it was a joint thing. But actually, when I look back, maybe it was more of they were kind of going along with me because they were happy to, but actually where was the joint dedication, the joint desire to create and co-create together? And there was also something about owning my own desire to be a mother, and my own desire to be honored in matrimony, in marriage. And up until then, again, without going into all the details with my particular ex-partner, who as we'll talk about is now back in my life in a very different way, is that I wasn't able to think about being a mother or even being married, because the real genuine problem or the real challenge was, will my family even accept him? And will we really ever be able to have a smooth, easy and graceful relationship, because we'll have all this other stuff we have to contend with, all this human, for want of a better word, bullshit, all this kind of fear and this, who is this person and how are they going to work in our family, and all this stuff I had to contend with for 3 years with my ex at the time, that actually we didn't even have space and time to think about. The really important purposeful stuff is to create life together, was to create a life together, not only as a child, but also what we wanted to do, the purpose we wanted to make, the difference we wanted to make, and both of us care about that deeply. So there was something about, I need to really own that part of me and trust that that is my destiny and that's my purpose as well. And there's a part of me that cares about to be a mum and to have a partner that I'm, in marriage with, was important, but also that I could honor my sacred feminine and sacred masculine, and that they work together instead of one or the other. And therefore I would then invite a man into my life that honors his sacred masculine, because so far I've been attracting men who had a high feminine energy, which is not bad, but when it's not balanced, I was taking on a lot of it felt like the effort and the drive, and actually wasn't being matched. So there was something for me, regardless of the man or not, that I needed to do to honor my sacred feminine. It wasn't, to make it clear, it wasn't about wearing perfume or doing my nails nicely or doing my hair nicely. None of that stuff, because I was visually very feminine. It was about the feminine essence. It was about really going with the flow. It was about trusting. It was about intuition. It was about knowing that there was inner wisdom that didn't require analysis or didn't require logic, but it was totally logical, but in a different way. It was the ability just to trust what was there and know that what was happening in that moment was absolutely necessary. It was a very powerful place I've now found to be, especially in a world that is complex, especially in a world that is hurt and in pain, in a world that is quite confused. Generally, we all are. There's something about the sacred feminine, which is everything is supposed to be exactly as it is. Everything has its place, and that for me, whilst I understood it intellectually, whilst I spoke about it, whilst I often would share that wisdom with others, there was something about me that didn't truly trust that until I had this opportunity to do the emotional mental detox and the one-to-one coaching with you, which I'm so glad I did, because if I'd done that emotional mental detox just on its own, I was in a place where I really needed that guidance, and I needed the support fully, as opposed to doing that on my own, because as you know, huge things happened to me physically. I had massive neck and shoulder issues which I've had for years, but it came to a head. I had huge cough problems, which again, through our work, I realized some of the stuff I was holding from my ancestors, which was huge for me. Even as I talk about it, I can't help but take a massive breath. And these are all things I've learned to really honor and respect about what I bring. But actually I've learned to start the journey, because it hasn't stopped yet. It's still more to do, to reprogram some of my cellular memory, i.e., as you say, get some of those kinks out. So back to the kind of relationship thing, and that was a kind of an example really of where I was being invited, I now know, by my higher self to expand my own range, to integrate parts of me that I had ignored, that I had not even given a light of day because I'd not seen it around me. I'd not witnessed sacred feminine or sacred masculine, for that matter, So in finding this is an antidote, I remember Rosie and I were sitting in my previous flat, and the first session we had in my flat on the floor, kind of the flat looked very much like this because I literally bought the place opposite, which was one of the things I really wanted to do, which I wasn't in no position to buy a flat at the time. And after calling in a lot of abundance, it happened. And I remember we both did a visualization, and in the visualization, we both saw something very similar, slightly different, but it was the same thing. I basically saw two male deities, which in my religion would be, Shiva and Hanuman. And it doesn't really matter that it's Hindu or not. The main thing is I saw two male deities pass me over to two female deities. And in this case, it was Lakshmi, the goddess of fertility and abundance. And also, I believe it was a Chinese deity. I can't remember her name. Kuan Yin, who also sits on a lotus. And you said it, I said it. There's a real sense of your sacred masculine has run the show. He's done a great job. He's got you where you've got to. He's helped you build some foundations, but now it's time for you to connect and step into a part of you that now requires your attention, another strong part of you, the sacred feminine. And when I did that, and I really did that, and again, like I said, there's still more I'm learning, still more I'm going into, there's still more I'm understanding. I default back sometimes into my wounded masculine. When I did that, my partner showed up again in a very, very magical way. No one even believes me apart from the people who were there on the phone call when that was making. And when he showed up, he had stepped into his sacred masculine, very different, separate to me. So we weren't together, we weren't talking, we weren't in any communication, but separately he was doing his work on his sacred masculine and I was doing my work on my sacred feminine. And when we came back together, our union felt much more complete and wholesome than ever before.
And this is such a classic. I mean, dare I bring up twin flames, because there's so much misunderstanding around that concept, and I know we've talked about it, but so we go through these intense connections, we meet people, they change us, and then we see the work we need to do in order to be able to step into a sacred union with that person. And actually it's total free will. We have the opportunity to do it, they have the opportunity to do it, but we know we can't work until we do it. Since you and I last were working together, I've entered into my sacred relationship, and it's very similar. We'd met 6 years before. It was not possible for us to be together. There was a deep love. It was not the right thing. We had to take that time apart to do the growing in ourselves to allow us to be together. And literally every day is like Christmas now. It's just so beautiful. But when you talk about not having had every time you talk about Lakshmi, every time you talk, I get these tingles coming through, and it just reminds me so much of how, we can relate the masculine to the conscious mind. We can relate the feminine to the subconscious mind. And one of the ways in this world today, we've learned to be in our power by doing and acting, and it's so subtle, but it's like if the other person isn't actually stepping into those cues fast enough, we take the opposite role. And this will always relate to our childhood experiences and how our mother and father played out their roles. And what you touched upon in terms of you had a true and deep intense desire, 1, to have children, 2, to be married, which as we sort of grow out of our fairy tale stories and become these superpower women, do you know what I mean, in this world where we're go-getters, we're often kind of like, there's a sense that we need to sacrifice one or the other. We can't be powerful in a commercial way. We can't be powerful in a way where we have a business mind, or where we're doing something in the world and also want to be a mother and a partner and really be in that. And it's not that it just happens to women, it happens to men as well. And I want to sort of talk transgender and talk, it doesn't really matter about our sexual orientation or even how we identify in ourselves as a man or a woman, what our genitals are. It actually matters that we have a balanced and grown up inner father, inner mother, to allow our inner child to be able to have the dreams they have and not feel bad about it. So, when you're sitting on the lap of the Almighty and you go, I really want this, and it's like, it's okay to want it, but more often than not, we talk ourselves out of it. And to me, what I saw you were playing out was like, you had learned to succeed in the physical world, the material world, but it was like at the cost of you being able to actually be in your receptive state and not keep defaulting to what you
Yeah.
know, what you're trained in. You know, your intuition was working with it, but it was very much in the mental body, and we needed to drop you into the heart. So in the sessions, you know, that we had together, we were using the physical tools that were the fearless aspect of the emotional mental detox and how they come together. And it was about, how do you, one, witness what's in you, how it relates to your ancestry, and then to be able to bring love to it so that it doesn't have power over you anymore. And you did, you went, I mean, you know, we have
Huge.
obvious relationships, physical well-being, prosperity, career opportunities. I mean, the fact that I remember one of the things that you were sort of stuck in was that you were in rented accommodation. You wanted to buy, you couldn't see how you could buy at the time,
Nope.
financially afford it. But you also, there's a part of you that didn't want to, and this is what I see so often, is how we sabotage, is like, you wanted to buy a place with a partner, do you know what I mean? And you didn't want to have to do it on your own. There was something that it was saying to you, and yet part of our journey is to recognize that the order of things is sometimes not what we expect.
Totally. And that's the feminine. That for me was that real, you mentioned it, kind of the receiving and the surrendering. And it's not, the word surrender, whenever I say, like, oh, that feels so passive, and it feels so like, nah, it's not that at all. It's far from it. It really is an allowing, being clear, but an allowing it to drop in as you want to. Like, I just wanted to show you something because of what you're speaking about. Like, I, for the last 15 years, have done vision boards. And the last vision board I did was 2018. After we worked together, like, it was in very close by, I did this. I don't mind sharing it. It's kind of personal, but I don't mind sharing it because 80% of it, if not more, came true. So I'm just going to have a quick show you of that.
Oh, wow.
So these are some of the things that, you know, we worked on. And just to kind of say, this was very much about trust, love, and balance, which we spoke about, which is kind of the third eye chakra, heart chakra, and womb chakra. And for me, that's been a really big part of my, you know, sacred masculine and feminine, for sure. There was this real kind of integration of wisdom and intelligence, and very much the science, the spirituality, and the masculine and the feminine, and the dark and the light, and all of those dualities that I was really seeking, because all my life I've been very positive, very go-getting, very make it happen, and I'm glad, and I wouldn't ever change that. And there was a part of me that was saying, there are other parts of me, like my dark side, my Kali side, the fearless side of me that needed to show up in a slightly different way. But I spoke about also co-creating my reality. I put things like live music. I was considering a secondment abroad, which kind of didn't go in the end, but it was okay because it wasn't what I wanted afterwards. But getting really into dance, peace and ease. My twin flame, I had no idea that was even going to happen, and that did. Ready for motherhood, eco living, own my own 2-bedroom house.
Ta-da!
Sing, I sort of sing because I do a lot of singing, and then there's, so this is more kind of the third dimension. So these are things that I wanted to own or do, and then it was kind of how I wanted to feel. So there's very much meditation practice, mindfulness, yoga, especially yoga retreats that I wanted to go to, which I've been on a few anyway, but there's one I particularly want to go to. Support of angels, balance at work and home. Totally, this is the first year I've had in my whole life where the balance between my work and my personal life is not only there, but there's joy and there's ease. And people are like, you know, probably thinking I'm not as busy. I'm as busy as I was, but there's something shifted in me through the work we've done together, which is, one, this is not the whole of me, but two, what if this was just easy and graceful? And that was something we spoke of and you endorse a lot. And I even say those words and it makes things change. People say easy and graceful. That's very different to stress-free. It's a very different feeling. Divine connection, Lakshmi support. So of all of these things, some of the biggest things that happened to me was, one, I reconnected not only with my twin flame, but we connected in a way that's the reason I came to you in the first place, was he is an absolute joy. I have never felt so happy and so seen, and we are both grateful for, we needed that time away. But and even he said to me when we met, he goes, I knew you were powerful, but there's something in you that has just got more powerful. It's compelling, and I want to cherish it and honor it and look after it. and I want to protect you, and I want to protect. I didn't need protecting, but there was something in him that made him kind of come alive when he saw that other side of me. And I purchased my own property, and again, a lot of other work I was doing along with the work we did, but really trusting that there was divine connection, trusting there's abundance and there's enough for everybody to go around, and that really imagining myself in this place and asking for the support, and then letting it go and knowing it was there. Work-life balance, as I mentioned, huge shift. I actually had a burnout end of last year, so it was after we continued working together, but that was because whilst I was acknowledging I needed work-life balance, I wasn't surrendering to it for real. So my body said, all right, well, if you're not going to allow it, it will be forced upon you. And it was. And it was tough, but again, it really allowed me to take in support, to allow myself to be nurtured, to reconnect with nature, to trust what was coming, as opposed to always making it happen. And so many things that I do, and people generally say to me now, and it wasn't like it was a new thing, but there's something about you that's really shifted. And I think that the only way I can describe it is that there's now this toolkit isn't the right word, and that will never really justify what we do together, what you teach, but there is this real integration of all the divine power and source we've always had and known, with the ability to create the physical world around us. And that's exactly what the work that you've done has allowed me to do, and especially have some connection and compassion with some of the things that's been happening in my family that have been deeply moving, painful, challenging, and I couldn't have dealt with it, I don't think, in the same way if I hadn't done the emotional mental detox with you, and the support and the insight you gave me was just nuts. Every time I did one of the meditations for emotional mental detox, it's like the kind of things that happened, the shifts that happened, the conversations that came up, the people that disappeared or showed up or stepped forward or challenged, or things that happened were just out of this world. Friends and family around me who knew I was doing this were kind of part of my journey, and they were just like, I can't believe it. I can't believe this is what happened. This is crazy. But it was good crazy, in the sense of, it was almost like when I embraced the ability to connect with all the resources we have from a divine point of view, things just started to work really easily. And I didn't have to work so hard, which I've been so used to doing. I've worked hard and fast and made sure everything happens, and make sure all the, you remember me, I had a huge affinity, and there's a part of me that loves that, with being organized and robust, and everything's got its place, and there's still part of me that's a bit of a control freak in many ways, but there's another part of me that's just like, you know what, mess is beautiful, and there are many things you can't control, and instead of trying to control it, why don't you just enjoy it, ride the wave? So it's not an either or now, it's a now I know how to kind of,
and this and more. And this is the point, is you talked about surrender, you talked about the shadow. I was thinking, because you are preparing to be a mum, so for me, whenever someone talks to me and says they have a desire, I know it's already there. I know it's already created. It just needs to be lined up. And it's our internal resistance, which is our subconscious programming, which is our inherited memories and beliefs that kind of play in. So there's something to be said when we say that there is order in the chaos. And with mothers, that it's such an interesting thing that they can seem like they're not really present, but they're so plugged into everything. Whereas again, when you look at this masculine feminine thing, you could say that the masculine's the lingam, the force, the direction, but the Shakti is the energy that drives that direction, and one without the other doesn't work so well. The way you were describing this relationship coming back into your life and what it's bringing now is like, I see you, and you do just literally look like a hybrid of Lakshmi and Kuan Yin, and I see the power running through you, and you do look so different. I mean, you looked amazing then, but like, you look really embodied and strong, and I when we talk about surrender and we talk about esoteric stuff, especially in the corporate sort of, if you've got a corporate job or you're in a world as a leader, how do you put it across in such a way that you're not so woo-woo? And the way that I see things is that we have to love our shadow. And you talked about that as Kali, and we can use these as, you know, they're sort of archetypes, aren't they, that help us to understand. But ultimately, it's being okay with our darkness, and it's recognizing the value of that darkness and not being scared to go into it. And when I talk about darkness, I mean the feelings that we don't like to show the world, the resentment, the bitterness, the anger, the rage, the envy, the things that we've just been taught are not okay. And you already touched on the fact that you were so used to working so hard and being driven, which is something we learn from others, you know, as valuable. Just like the only way to make money that's good is to work hard for it, you know. And you also talked about the fact that the sort of results are 360, and this is the point about reprogramming the motherboard. Is that's why I don't advertise myself as a specific, you know, I'm not a financial coach, I'm not a relationship coach. And I remember my coach saying to me, "Oh, you're a spiritual life coach," and I went, "Oh, I hate that." And then it was like, it's kind of what you do, girl. You know?
Yeah, you can't put words to what you do. If you can't put words to what you do, and you know, for all I can do is look at the results.
Yeah.
And the
Well,
results.
tell us about them. Tell us about the results.
Well, the results are that as I mentioned, I have my own and look, just to say too for listeners that I have been doing a lot of work. So just to say, this isn't like this wasn't for the faint-hearted, that's for sure. I was ready to take the leap. I was committed. I was willing to put the money in, the time in, and not once did I ever go, oh, is it worth it? Every time I thought, what an investment of my energy, my time, my money, my expertise, my faith. So, and again, the results are, I have my own property. I am connected with my twin flame, and not because of, you know, I did my work, and therefore I could meet this man back in a frequency that I wanted to be in a relationship, and I had to do my work first. We often talk about, I want a man who can do this, I want a perfect man, vice versa, but we haven't done our work. So how can we meet someone at that high vibration where we haven't done it ourselves? So I had to uplift. So when he came back in, he was meeting me at that stage, and that's exactly what happened. And it's been bliss. We are on the same page. We have redesigned how we want to be, and yet all the other work I've done has all been integrated into this. This integration, I feel very integrated with myself, my masculine, my feminine. I have more joy in my work life. I'm also more intolerant of things that do not serve my purpose, do not serve my values. And it's not to blame anybody or say anyone's wrong anyway. It's almost like my purpose and my values have become even more clearer and stronger. Things are easy and graceful. So where I normally would have stressed about things at work, or stressed about things in my home life, or been a stress head, call it what you want to. And I always did it with fun and lightness, but inside I was stressing, and I was just, it was so much effort to something that I did enjoy in the end, but the stress up to it was hard. Now I have this ability to go ease and grace. This is going to be easy and graceful. And I do my Gaia source meditation pretty much every day, and every time I do it, it makes me smile. I've taught it to other people when they're kind of feeling like they need a connection, and I feel so calm and grounded. So I feel like anything that comes up, and again, without going into detail, but this year, something huge happened to my family. Huge. It was actually life or death. And someone deeply close to me in my family. And I had to use many of the tools you've taught me, and others, including my faith and meditation, and my own kind of affirmations. But it's all the work we did together was so enhanced and complemented and upgraded what I already knew, took it to a whole new level. I can honestly say that even people who had no idea of the work we were doing together or the work I'd done were like, this is like magic. Magic is happening. And in the end, the person I'm talking about, not only was their life saved, but I had the resources, the energetic resources, the spiritual, the emotional, the physical, the financial resources to help more than beyond my wildest dreams. And I could never have done that a few years ago. And even their response to me and the people around me was, you just seem to have everything under control, but it seems really easy. And it doesn't feel like you're having to work hard at this. So my whole view on life has been just to be more in joy with the work I'm doing and what I'm doing. I I don't have this certain pain that I had, shoulder and back pain, which I've had for many, many years. And the work we did together was astounding. I haven't had that neck and shoulder pain for ages now. Again, granted, I do work to strengthen my shoulders too, and I do yoga, but that's not the reason that pain has gone. Me and you did some work together where I, whether it was actual or metaphorical, where I connected to maybe where that pain is coming from in past lives, and I was astonished about what I saw in my imagination, and I knew I needed to see it. And as a result, there was a moment for listeners out there where I was literally bedbound. I couldn't get out of the bed. My shoulders and my neck were so bad. And this is the work we're doing. So when I say not for the faint-hearted, what I mean by that is the stuff comes up.
It comes up.
The toilet, that shit comes up, and boy did it come up. And I wasn't ready because I didn't know what was going to come up, but I was ready in that I knew I needed to do it. And we did a session together, and you were on the phone immediately as quickly as you could, and I was so grateful. And we did the work together, and something literally shifted. And in that moment, after doing the meditation with you, that I could move my neck where I physically couldn't even do that to it. And I could literally move it like that. And ever since then, I've not had that pain ever again. I had huge throat. I had coughs every year on year during Christmas time, during winter. I'd have these coughs, deep, chesty coughs. And yet you could say I don't dress up well, or I don't even smoke. Don't know where that came from. The work we did together, which is about what am I holding, or what does that represent, what source of pain I represent in my family, my ancestry, was vivid and was so profound. And as a result, the cough disappeared. And I've had that for years. So there are some physical pain issues that disappeared. There are some relationships that have been unified and have become fluid and more, they have boundaries, and they have a sense of real respect, but the love is more free flowing. I'm back in a partnership not even back. I'm in a new partnership that is even better than it was before. And it was amazing then, but so much better because of the work I've done and also he's done. Work is amazing. I'm still, as listeners know out there, I work in a corporate world. In healthcare, it's busy, it's stressful, it's highly regulated, high pressure, and a lot of people you're responsible for supporting. And I am more, my perspective is bigger, so I still take my work very seriously, but there's a bigger part of me that I honor that I never did before. And I guess that the other thing, along with all those amazing things, and I'm sure there's more, and I can't even begin to tell you how many more. I've got loads of tools to detox myself and look after myself, protect myself. I'm very sensitive, so I pick a lot up, which I never had before. So I now know how to protect my energy and protect my precious kind of gift that I give to the world, because it's very exposed out there. I think the biggest thing for me is integrating all of my wisdom, my training, my gift, my value for a more enhanced part of me. And it's so exciting because the work I do, I'm in L&D, so the work I do has a direct impact on people's well-being, their motivation, the way they see themselves, the way they see human beings, the way they see each other. And all of this stuff I use daily, not necessarily talking about it, but it's in my being. I wake up in the morning, I connect with this part of me, and I bring it to everything I do, and people feel it. And it's powerful. It's hugely powerful. And probably the one thing I did say, and I just to reiterate this and underline it a bit, is I never knew how important it was, or maybe as I became more open, connected, I never knew how important it was to protect my energy. And that's part of the reason why I burnt out at the end of last year. And the work we did together, I reconnected with some of that, and I made myself like a list of like all the things I can do to detox, recharge, and reconnect. Like literally physical things like apple cider vinegar baths, the Gaia source meditation, grounding, Kali Kriya, the meditations, the affirmations we spoke about, the emotional mental detox recordings, working with crystals, prayers to water to drink and kind of purify. There are so many things I have, and I use them. Some of them I use very intuitively now. Some of them I have to look at. But I feel like I now have like an all-round toolkit that helps me detox, remove any dense energy, remove any negativity from myself and all the things that I've been around. to recharge with my own power, divine power, to recharge with my own knowing, my own wisdom, and reconnect with what's important. And I think that's probably some of the most valuable things I got from our work together. It's like I think one of the successes I have as a coach is if someone can self-coach, I've done a good job. I've done my bit.
Exactly.
And that's what he's done. And that's what he's done for me, is I have all these tools and these things to go back to. I mean, I would always benefit from your wisdom and your insights, even now. And I know you always give something wonderful, even in your YouTube videos and your Facebook lives. And I have a toolkit that I can use on my own whenever I need. And there's an independence about it that you've allowed me to have. So I'm not dependent on you for this. I can use it. But that for me is, again, a real mark of a highly integral coach, and also a highly integral professional is someone who actually enables others to do this on their own. And that's the gift you gave to me.
Oh, bless you. Well, that's the magic wand, isn't it? It's about, we all have a magic wand. It's just teaching you how to use your magic wand. And we've talked about subconscious, conscious. Our super conscious is that soul connection that we get to through the I ams, but we've got to do the clearing. I was thinking about the inner bitch, and I was thinking about how, quite a lot of my clients, especially my one-to-one clients, whether it's through the Fearless program. So one of the things I would say now to sort of give you a sense of where I'm at in my journey is that the work we did together is what I would call is your divine blueprint activation. And then there's divine blueprint integration, and then divine blueprint embodiment. And we actually had quite a lot of time together. So we did 1 and 2, and every time we up level, our teachers are up leveling too. So we get to tap in whenever we want to another level. But the idea is very much that, I don't want to make people dependent on me. If they want to continue their journey with me, it's because they want to go to another place and that they're ready for that. But until then, you always want to have an outcome from whatever you're doing, whatever we set as an intention at the start, that those are your outcomes. And you're like, this is what we're doing this time. And then this is where we know we could go next if we want to, but it's complete in itself. So there's a whole level that's complete in itself. And I personally couldn't work in the corporate world because I am too sensitive. And so many of the people that I work with, and I've worked with quite a lot of men as well, is that sensitivity of how can you be in your strength, but also be sensitive and not take on stuff. Because even just going on a train, even just going into a big office environment, like for some of us, it's too much. And you do need a lot of tools. And I have other clients in similar work to you. And they've literally got to decord and energy refund on their way home, and it is about that discipline, which, the way I describe discipline is discipleship. It's that learning to be willing to see how you can be in the world you're in an optimal way, without being super strict, super mean. And like you saw that burnout, it's like when we're not looking after ourselves, our higher selves will go, oi, you need this. And you also need to trust that actually there's one way of showing up, and then there are other ways, and you're going to see other ways now that are going to feel even better. What I love was what you were talking about from that moment you wake up. This is what we do. Our lives change. And personally, for me, my inner landscape changed so much that I was waking up with joy in my heart. I was waking up with, still am. It's not like was, but it's like, what's the day going to bring? Rather than, it's the morning and like the 100 things you've got to do. And you know what I mean?
But too, and again, maybe some, there's a different side to it. Actually, sometimes I wake up feeling deeply sad and not wanting to bother, and which is also really new for me. And once upon a time, again, because my conditioning has been be positive, always be grateful, always be blessed, always be thankful. And I'm very glad to my parents for that. And it's really set me up for the right way. And I never understood or knew what it felt like to feel the darkness and to feel the low sides of, not the low, but the kind of the dark sides of our humanity. And what's different now is that ironically I have a bit more of those experiences, but it's from a place of the compassion I feel for others is deeper, because I now can sense, there's something in that. I also have a faith that there's something it's trying to teach me, and there's something maybe I'm dishonoring in myself if I'm feeling that way. So what is true for me too, is that it's not like every day is bliss and every day is joy and everything's wonderful all the time. In fact, ironically, the challenges have almost got stronger. The difference is the way I respond, the resilience I have, the allowing and the acceptance I have, what I have around me now to pull upon and draw upon within me, around me, is much more extensive, and to a point where some things I don't know if I would have been able to handle it better before. So it's almost like it's the more you open yourself, there's this lovely expression that the more you stand in your light, the darker your shadow. You know,
so integrate it, bring it into love.
I'm not scared of it. Oh my god, this is part of me, I don't want to. It was like, oh look, there's this part of me, it has a place, it has a voice, I want to honor it, and actually how do I bring it in as part of this experience, because it's real. So nothing feels out of place anymore, and it all feels like it's a part of a union of everything that's supposed to be happening. At the moment, I'm training in group and team coaching, and it's all about the system, voice of the system. And actually, we speak about something called ghost roles and things that have, been part of our history, and how it still plays out in our existing systems.
And I think that was a question I was actually going to ask you. Was are you still with us?
Okay.
So Shivani's back. We had a temporary blip with the iPhone freezing, but you got your battery charging now, so we've got a different view of your lovely place. And this was one of the things, just to touch very quickly on what you said, and I think when we have been taught to be grateful and happy and look for the good stuff, actually there is so much value in allowing ourselves to also see the darkness and to feel all of our emotions and be in a state of wonderment rather than judgment about them. And this is one of, again, the key tools for me, is moving out of what's right, what's wrong. And we said instead of either or, it's and this and more. And if you think of the full spectrum, like for example, the symbolism of bringing the hands together is uniting all the opposing forces within us and bringing us back to the heart center, which is the question, what would love do? Since we last worked together, I've kind of really refined the idea that we're always aligning with the highest good of all and the win-win-win in everything, in all of our intentions. So when we bring in, I am that I am, and whatever we call in, some of the wording I use now is I am surrendering my programmed will, or my ego will, to my divine will, which so many of us have a trouble with when we have been taught that the divine is judgmental and wrathful and there is a good way to be. And so all the things that are taboo, whether it's desire, whether it's pleasure, whether it's sort of pleasures of the senses, whatever are the things that kind of pull us into more discovery. If we've been taught this is wrong, you stay away from this is good, this is virtuous, this isn't. There's almost a fascination with the darkness because we've never been allowed to explore it. And it doesn't matter whether that's a habit, a physical experience, or an emotion or a thought. And it's like just being open. Now, just before you cut out, you were talking about the fact that you're training at the moment in group coaching. And obviously I offer the work that I do in a group and a one-to-one capacity, and you were really adamant you wanted to do one-to-one. So, for you, what was the value of that? Like, if people are sort of thinking one or the other, what would you say?
So I think I'm probably in an advantage situation where being a coach and doing one-to-one coaching, hundreds of people myself, albeit in a very different capacity, there's something very important when someone's ready to do their work. And again, I have no reference, I didn't do the group coaching, but when someone's ready to do their work, that one-to-one really helps them to kind of have that dedicated, focused, uninterrupted time. And I just knew it inside that I wanted to create the space, the container in which to really dive into this work. And I knew I needed to be held. Like, I just knew that. And I knew that this was going to take me beyond my intellect. I knew it was going to take me into my body. I knew it was going to take me into some ancestral stuff. I knew I needed that committed time to reflect, to be quiet, to hear, to think, to meditate, to feel it. and I didn't want to be rushed, because this was not just that it'd be nice to some coaching. I really needed this kind of coaching. I really needed this kind of support. And I needed a divine kind of support, and I needed a guru. And I know that word, it's chucked around a little bit in the Western world, a guru. But actually a guru is someone who is able to guide someone through a very big shift and a very big stage in their life, and someone who has been there, someone who understands, someone who can deal with what comes up. And for me, you were that guru. And I I did the emotional mental detox meditations on my own, where I had to listen to the recordings. And I have to say, for anybody who appreciates a system and appreciates a structure, that's what I got from that. And it was very clear what I need to do, when I need to do it. So I had that. And then I had my one-to-ones with you. And that was a place where I could really understand what was going on, because it wasn't just a bit of coaching and then a meditation and then that was it. Things were happening, conversations were happening, things were shifting in my body, shifting in my heart. Things were happening that were way off the radar when it comes to what might feel normal. Amazing things happening for people around me, friends and family, who had no idea what I was doing, and yet conversations were happening, things were going on it felt like a catalyst to what was really needed to happen. And having that one-to-one with you helped me make sense of it. I got to understand the bigger perspective. I got that wisdom from you. I got the questions. I got the ability to kind of see the bigger picture, to understand it, which I don't think I would have got in group coaching, although maybe I would have. But I was willing to put that time and investment in, because in some ways, I guess I knew too that I couldn't escape it. And not that it wasn't something to escape, but it's so easy to kind of go, oh, well, another day, or I haven't got time for that. Whereas because I made that commitment to the session with you, I knew I had to create a space in which to go there. And if I tried to cram it into my busy schedule, it wouldn't have happened. Even with all the wind, it wouldn't have happened. So, and actually what I'm very grateful for is not only our coaching sessions. We often did things via WhatsApp, where I'd share something that happened, or a dream I had, or a conversation I had, or something that I felt, or something that I'd learned, which was moving, and it all felt like it connected. And straight away you'd send me text back or an audio reflection that helped me to deepen my understanding and deepen my insights, and gave me other perspectives and other wisdom that I to make sense of what was actually going on. And as you said, we worked for a little bit longer than we were intending to, but it certainly didn't feel like that was the wrong thing to do. I was very grateful that you gave me that commitment to do that. And I always felt like you were part of my journey with me, but I was doing the journey, but you were there as a support, as the guidance, as the guru. But I had to do it. I had to experience it. So I think that for me, the one-to-one, I had to do it that way. I would definitely consider doing the group coaching now. I think right now I probably wouldn't do that, just because of where I'm currently trying to apply and utilize all the things that we've worked on. But
you're not trying, you're doing it, girlfriend. There's no trying. You do or you don't do.
There's kind of a something with me that maybe some of your viewers will associate with, is that at the moment I feel like my cup is full. Yeah. I've got so much great learnings, wisdom, insights that I can't take in anymore. It's almost like all of this stuff here needs time to marinate, to grow. It's like an oak tree, you can't speed it up, but you need to give it the time. So I feel like I've got that much from our sessions together that for me, it's more about how do I keep that alive? How do I continue to even revisit some of many of those things before? But I would, if you asked me again, do the group coaching instead of the one-to-one, I still would have gone one-to-one, and it was more time, more investment, totally worth it. I would do it again in a heartbeat. To your point, should I be in a place where, I've said this to Rosie, and I'm going to say it again. When it comes to me, having creating a baby together, I definitely want you part of that journey in terms of helping me to prepare.
Oh, we'll be on Conceive with Ease. We'll be doing that, and
exactly. and not just, as you know, not just the body, but also the whole. I mean, your video about conceiving with ease, it was so profound in terms of, you said something in one of your videos that I was like, whoa, would a baby want to grow inside of you right now? And I was like, wow, like that makes me think very differently about having a child. It isn't just about the financial setup and am I eating the right thing and am I healthy? There's just something about what's the environment in which I would bring a child into this world, and I want a child to come into this world in total joy and accepting all of its humanness. So that's something that, that then I need to role model that.
Yeah, and you've got it. I mean, you're talking here, so I hear an overflowing cup, and I'm like, well, if you were doing anything, you don't need a group coaching because you've got so much going on. If anything, you'd come into Rise, which is the membership for people who've done all of the deeper reprogram with me. It's like a top up every 2 weeks that just allows you to just fine tune the co-creation tools. When people are ready, it's there for them, and it's really affordable. And I do actually remember when you were like, right, how much is the coaching? And I said, oh, it's this much. And you were like, whoa, it's a bit more than I thought it was going to be. Hold on a minute, I'm going to have to pull some resources together. But you were still there and you were clear. And I think this is one of the key things I've seen with money magic, which I'm just going to call it money magic. In fact, that's going to be one of my new programs, is that when you decide you want something and you're like, this is for me, the world conspires, the universe conspires, but you have to remember you're worth it and you deserve it. And actually that whole thing of, can I afford not to versus can I afford to?
And I think the financial, let's be honest, financially, there's a lot of people who have a still interesting view of money, me included, in the sense of before I started working with you, I'd already really started embracing this idea of abundance. And actually that's hence why I think I moved from self-employed into J&J, and my finances totally shifted because I shifted, not necessarily because I became more worthy of something. But I think two things that really struck me. One is that when we did the emotional mental detox, one of them is lack, and it really...
Wait, I'm going to explain that. It's the fearless, empowered, and free to be me, because people are going to be like, oh, what's this?
Sorry, yes,
it's all part of it. What was happening for Shivani was I was taking her through all of the fearless tools as part of the one-to-one coaching. So the bit you remember is the detox, but there was kind of either side all of this work, which is the fearless and empowered and free to be me bit, which set you up to have a more graceful experience. Because I've seen, when I went through EM detox on its own without having created the work around it, it was very, and there was, I wasn't doing it one-to-one. There wasn't so much holding, and it taught me the value of the yoga and the physical tools that I had learned in all my work prior. So carry on. I just wanted to make that clear.
And I'm really, and apologies, yes, because there is context, and sometimes this is where my kind of left hemisphere is kind of checked out a little bit, because normally I'm all over that, but it's kind of I just felt it. So there's two things. One, where we did the lack part of that particular program, I was really struck by my own programming around lack, and it was probably the one that moved me the most. All of them moved me in wonderful and crazy and profound directions, but that was probably the one that really came to me. And one of the things, I'd already done some work on abundance anyway, and for me the value is in how much do we spend on TVs, on a one-time holiday, on online training programs, and all other kinds of stuff that we at the time deem as valuable. And ironically, coaching is one of those things that, because it's not a tangible thing that you don't get a book out of, or even though there were materials with it, but it's not something you actually physically make, it's harder to see the value. What I can say now, and this is, I know Rosie well enough, but I have no conflict of interest to promote anything other than because I want others to experience it, is this has set me up for life. This has deeply moved me. This has made me so much more connected and integrated. My friends, family, my sisters, both my blood sisters and my soul sisters, often say how much they they could see the transformation, and they feel it with me, and they get transmissions into the things that I've shared with them, that I've experienced through working with you, that they have also benefited from. And when I look at the money I spent versus the value I got, return on investment was huge, because I still see it, feel it. I'm honored by it even now. And I know that the work we did together wasn't even like a scratching of the surface, but it felt so deep and right pitch for me. And what I also loved about your style is that, again, there's always that risk of it gets too woo-woo, not with you, but generally, or it's too much about what are you going to do next and what's the action plan? And that's not really my style of coaching either, but it can very much be, what are you doing next? Working with you, it just felt like every part of me was fully engaged. My mind, my body, my spirit, my future, my past, my present, my current, my ancestors and my future selves. Like, it was just, all of it was in. And so I have learned so much about my physical body, my emotional, mental, pain body, all of it. And I know we didn't even scratch the surface. Like, I just feel like this work is so deep. And I think for anybody who's doing this kind of work, you need to have a good guru to guide you through it. Otherwise, to your point, with your experience up and down, I couldn't have handled that at the time. I don't think I could have handled it now, actually. I needed it to be gentle, because the work I was doing was deep. I needed that compassion, which, yeah, you gave me compassion, but you'd also brought it, Rosie. Like, you were compassionate, but you didn't let my saboteur or my kind of small selves drive the show ever. And that was, again, a mark for me of a very powerful coach.
Oh, living it. Well, I'm so grateful you're saying all that. I have to admit, I'm struggling with the word guru, just because I've really intended to move away from followers, and that's why I love YouTube, because it's about subscribing to vibration. But in the way you've described it, that's helping me to have an expansion and to accept that perception. And actually, I'm feeling a little download. So I'm going to accept my guru self right now. So thank you very much for that. And, you know, not meaning that in any sort of negative way, although I'll take the shadow that comes with it as well. Yeah, well, look, for me, it's been the gift that keeps on giving. And I've seen that endlessly with people. And I think that, like, you've touched on a lot of things I'm really grateful for, because for me, the integrity is, you know, the shadow side of all of these things is things like, you know, being a salesperson, selling snake oil, all these intangibles. And it's like, no, this isn't what it is. There is such a deep integrity, and every situation, every person is unique. And the time we had together, and we'll bring it to a close now, because I'm sure we've been an hour. The time we've had together is just been so magical, and I recognize you as a soul. I know, as a sister, I'm so honored to have been able to press the buttons again, to go wakey, you know, all of these bits come on, and like you say, you have to be ready. But if your heart is calling you, if you're getting excited about it, if you're like, why wouldn't I mean, you know, it's like, okay, I'm going to do this. It's there. And what I would love us to do is to reconnect again in the future, and maybe even we'll see what we do, but sort of talk more on the sort of divine, well, the twin flame thing. There's so many places we could go, and I really want to support your work as well. So is there anything you'd like to share in terms of what you're doing at the moment that might be of interest to those who are listening?
You know, normally as Rosie will know, she joined a street coaching social enterprise that I used to run until last year. I kind of put it on pause to make space for my twin flame, to make space for a family, and to make space for harvesting and enjoying all the effort and hard work I put in. So actually, there isn't anything other than I think the thing I'm promoting is to this. I hear people saying, you know, don't hustle but align, but really is promoting that actually it's enough of this. You got to work hard to enjoy life. Enough of this, you got to acquire more to be happy. Enough of this, you know, we have to push to make things happen. Actually, what I want to endorse is life as I am experiencing it now, through the work with you and through my other work too. But I've got to a place where we can really enjoy life, like, fully, without the pain and the struggle of it all. And it's time to let go of those things that didn't serve us anymore. So that's kind of what I want to endorse, is that there's a new way. There's a new way to live, and it doesn't hurt anybody, and it doesn't require doing a degree or reading many books. It requires a looking in, again, going quiet, and listening to what's important. For me, that's what I'm doing more of in my work corporately, and my private work, and going forward is how do we help people to really to go in, step in order to step up. So
yeah, baby.
anything else to promote? And you know, thank you to you for role modeling so openly to your own transitions in life and your own pains and struggles, because that too for me is very important. Because sometimes, like you said it to me, but I say to people all the time, just because I'm a coach doesn't mean I've got my life sorted. In fact, far from it. More challenges come up, but the difference is you handle it differently, and it makes me more grateful when I see people like you sharing the challenges and the struggles and the successes and the joys, because it's all real, and just for exhibiting the real art of having a lot of fun but doing a lot of good serious work, and also enjoying sacred masculine, sacred feminine, all of it. You're a great role model to that and to other people. And I truly, man or woman, if there's anyone out there who's thinking, you know, there's some really important work for me to do, whatever level you are at, and anything that Rosie talks about or you see and you think there's something interesting about it, please speak to her, because that's the best thing I've done in a long time. And this will not only stay with me, and I don't say this lightly, it will continue for generations to come. And one of the biggest reasons I also did this is that I wanted to make the world a better place for future generations to come. And you can only do that if you do the healing now. And that's why also a big driver for me, is not only to make my life totally joyful and a success, it's also, I know that what I do now will affect my kids in the future. So I'm doing it for the future as well.
I'm very happy. I'm really happy to hear all this. I just love your insights. And yeah, that's why we're doing it. We are clearing karma from this planet. We're clearing the need to redo things again and again in order to understand them. But we're going to leave that there, because I just think you've so beautifully put it together. So Shivani, thank you so much for taking the time. I know the next time I see you, you're going to have more celebrations, and we will catch up in physical as well. But I'm intending that your story is a real inspiration for others, to really inspire them to take that leap of faith in their own lives, wherever that is, whatever they need to do. And if they're feeling the call to work with me, great. But just thank you for all you've shared, because you've explained it in ways that if I'm saying it, it's kind of like, me. But it's like you are putting forward what the tangible is. So thank you.
Thank you so much. And super fun to do this towards the end of the year, reviewing the year in progress. And thank you for your patience. And I look forward to seeing more of your successes and all the amazing people that you work with, and would love to reconnect with you. Again, let's see what else there is worth celebrating. I have no doubt the next few years are going to be very joyful. In fact, I'm going to co-create it.
You are going to co-create, because you're the co-creator of reality, and you're a multidimensional being of love and light, which is what you were talking about. But anyway, we're going to stop that there. So thank you everybody. Thank you, and I'll stop the recording now.
Namaste.
Namaste.